In Sherleaf, J. Pilgrim crafts a raw, moving tale of a man at war with his past. Bob Chambers has made every wrong choice a man can make, until a fateful accident and a supernatural encounter force him onto a path of reckoning. As he bonds with his estranged daughter on the run, Bob faces the ultimate test. Can he rebuild what he's broken, or is it too late? Sherleaf is a story of courage, consequences, and the unyielding strength of love. Perfect for fans of gritty, emotional storytelling. Chapter 11. The Final Stretch. The road stretched ahead, winding through the last remnants of open countryside towards the gray urban area of Huntley. The further north they drove, the heavier the weight in Bob's chest became. One more stretch of road. One more chance to set things right. But soon, they would have no choice but to join the motorway. Their safest back roads would run out, and that meant exposure. Mary sat in the passenger seat, her arms wrapped around herself as she stared out at the Waikato River snaking its way alongside the town. The industrial towers of the Huntley Power Station loomed in the distance, their twin chimneys stretching into the dull sky. It was a reminder that they were getting close, that soon there would be no more quiet, forgotten roads to hide on. Bob cruised along, one hand resting lazily on the wheel, the other tapping to the rhythm of the radio. We're almost there. Another hour, and we'll be in Auckland. Mary nodded but said nothing. She had been quiet for the last few kilometers, and Bob wasn't sure if it was exhaustion or something deeper. He cleared his throat. "You all right, kid?" She turned her gaze from the window. "Yeah, just thinking about Mom. Do you know where she stays?" Bob shrugged. "No, but I know where to start looking," Mary sighed and said. "Once we get there, everything changes. Mom's going to freak. The police might be waiting. And what if she doesn't even want me back?" Bob swallowed hard. "She wants you back, Mary. No question." Mary looked away. "And you? What happens to you?" Bob hesitated. "I don't know." She turned back to him, her expression uncharacteristically serious. "I don't want you to go to jail." Bob felt something tighten in his chest. "I won't." The silence settled between them again, thick with unspoken thoughts. The motorway entrance loomed ahead, the green signs announcing the route to Auckland in bold white letters. He hated the idea of taking it. It was too open, too exposed. If the police were looking for them, the main roads would be the first place they checked. Mary noticed his hesitation. "You're not thinking about taking some back road, are you?" Bob's expression displayed signs of concern. "To tell you the truth, I am worried about taking the highway." She frowned as she gazed at the map. "There is no other easy road." "The motorway is the fastest way." Bob shot her a glance. "Well, okay then, here goes nothing." The motorway stretched ahead, waiting for them. Bob pressed his foot on the accelerator, merging onto the highway. There was no turning back now. Auckland was waiting. The hum of the highway filled the car as Bob guided the SUV amongst the steady stream of vehicles heading north. The road stretched ahead, smooth and straight, framed by rolling farmland and distant hills fading into the skyline. Mary sat quietly beside him, staring out the window as fields gave way to industrial estates and clusters of roadside businesses. The drive felt exhilarating, as this was their first road trip in this part of the country. The green highway signs loomed ahead, counting down the kilometers to Auckland. They had never traveled out of Wellington. This road trip was a new experience for the immigrated family. Bob's stomach tightened. He had spent so long running that the idea of actually reaching their destination felt unreal. A stop at Bombay Hills. Bob knew that being on this motorway meant risk. They weren't hidden in the countryside anymore. The police could be anywhere, scanning for stolen vehicles, watching for suspicious travelers. Mary finally spoke as she noted a road sign. "Not far to go now." "We're coming to the city." Bob nodded, keeping his eyes on the road. "Yeah, almost there." Mary huffed a quiet laugh. "Almost. As they neared the outskirts of the Auckland district, Bob saw a sign for the Bombay Hills rest stop. It was the last major service station before the city. One final chance to stop before plunging into the urban sprawl. He flicked the indicator and pulled off the motorway, rolling into the rest stop parking lot. The place was busy, filled with travelers stretching their legs, grabbing food, refueling. A large BP station stood at the entrance, flanked by a McDonald's and a cafe. The scent of fried food and petrol lingered in the air. Bob shut off the engine. "We need a break. Grab something to eat, and I need to stretch." "My body is still sore." Mary stretched her arms. "Yeah, and I need to use the bathroom." They stepped out of the car, blending into the crowd of weary drivers and road trippers. Bob kept his head down, scanning the area for anything suspicious. Cops, security cameras, anything that might be looking too closely at them. Mary tugged on his sleeve. "Relax, we don't look any different from the other people here." Bob sighed. "Doesn't mean I don't feel different." They headed into the cafe, ordering 2 drinks and some sandwiches. The cashier barely glanced at them, too busy with the morning rush. Bob paid in cash and grabbed their order, finding a seat in the corner near a window overlooking the car park. Mary took a bite of her sandwich. "So, this is the 3rd day. Sherleaf said that you have 3 days, right? It looks like you are going to make it in time. I'm not saying I fully believe your story about the angel. Just saying." Bob stirred his coffee. "Spirit guide," he corrected her. "Something like that. I just need to figure out how to contact Kate." Mary studied him. "You nervous?" Bob revealed his feelings. "Anxious," she nodded, taking a sip of her drink. "All right. Same here." They sat in silence for a moment, the city skyline just visible on the horizon. One last stretch of road. One last shot at making things right. Bob took a final sip of his coffee, staring out at the car park. Mary was picking at the crust of her sandwich, distracted, when she suddenly stiffened. "Dad," she murmured. "That guy over there. He keeps looking at us." Bob followed her gaze. Near the fuel pumps, a middle-aged man in a windbreaker was standing with his phone to his ear, eyes flicking between them and his car. Bob's stomach dropped. "Damn it," he muttered. "Come on. We need to move. Now." They stood up quickly, stuffing the remains of their sandwiches into their mouths. Bob grabbed Mary's wrist and guided her toward the exit, trying to stay calm, trying not to draw more attention. But before they could reach the SUV, the distant wail of sirens cut through the air. Mary's fingers clenched around his. "Dad." "I know," Bob said through gritted teeth. A police car screeched into the parking lot, followed by another. Within seconds, uniformed officers spilled out. "Robert Chambers. Hands where we can see them." One of them shouted, stepping forward with his taser aimed squarely at Bob's chest. Bob's breath came hard and fast. He raised his hands, stepping slightly in front of Mary. "Listen. Just listen to me. I'm not kidnapping her. I'm taking her to her mother." The officer didn't lower his taser. "Sir, lie down on the ground, hands behind your head. Now." Bob hesitated, glancing at Mary. She looked frozen, eyes darting wildly between the officers and her father. "Please," Bob tried again. "Just let me explain. Last warning, get on the ground." Bob's mind raced. He knew that once he went down, they'd take Mary, and there was no telling if they'd listen to her, if they'd believe any of this. He took half a step forward. A crackling sound split the air. Pain exploded through Bob's body as the taser wires struck his chest. He barely had time to process it before his muscles locked up, his knees buckling. He collapsed onto the pavement, his limbs jerking uncontrollably. Mary screamed, "Stop, stop it. He's telling the truth." The officers moved in, pinning Bob to the ground, cuffing his wrists behind his back. His breath came in short gasps, his body still twitching from the shock. He turned his head just enough to see Mary struggling as another officer gently took her arm, leading her away. "No, Mary." Bob choked out. Don't let them take you." Mary fought against their grip, tears in her eyes. "He is my dad. He has taken me to Mom. Let me be." Bob tried to speak, but his body wasn't listening. His mind spun as his vision darkened at the edges. The last thing he saw before everything faded was Mary's terrified face, calling out his name. Captured. Bob's head throbbed as he came to, his body aching from the effects of the taser. The distant hum of an engine and the rhythmic clicking of a turn signal told him he was in a moving vehicle. He blinked gradually, his vision adjusting to the interior of a police car. The world outside the window was a blur of street signs, parked vehicles, and the towering skyline of Auckland looming in the distance. He groaned, shifting against the tight grip of handcuffs digging into his wrists. The officer in the passenger seat turned to glance at him. "He's awake." The driver, a stocky cop with graying hair, chuckled. "About time." "You gave us a run, Chambers." Bob swallowed, his throat dry. "Where's Mary?" The officer beside him sighed. "She's safe, riding in the other car. She'll be met by a caseworker when we get to the station." Bob's jaw clenched. "She's my daughter. She was never in danger." "That's not for us to decide," the driver said, keeping his eyes on the road. "Your story doesn't matter right now. The law says we bring you in, and that's exactly what we're doing." Bob turned his head, watching the view outside. The motorway funneled into a sea of cars. The streets were alive with the bustle of Auckland city life. The rain had come through recently, leaving everything slick and reflective. It was a far cry from the quiet back roads they had taken to get here. He let his head rest against the window, exhaling sharply. "Where is the damn spirit guide when I need him?" The officers exchanged a glance but said nothing. As they drove deeper into the city, Bob felt the weight of everything crash onto him. The long days on the road, the risks, the moments when he and Mary had started to understand each other. It was all unraveling. He had fought so hard to get here, and now, at the finish line, he was in the back of a cop car, powerless. He thought of Mary, how terrified she must be, how she had trusted him despite everything. And now, she was alone with people who saw her as just another case file. The driver slowed down as he approached the police station entrance. Bob straightened, forcing down the frustration boiling inside him. If he was going to fix this, he needed a plan. And he needed Sherleaf. But where was he? When Bob was stranded on the road, when he was struggling with Mary, when he was dodging the police, Sherleaf had always been there. Guiding, warning, watching. Now, when everything was truly falling apart, when he was shackled and helpless, the spirit guide was nowhere to be found. Had he failed the test? Had Sherleaf abandoned him because he had gotten it all wrong? The thought made Bob's stomach twist. He wasn't ready for this to be over. Not like this. Hey friends! Before we jump into the next chapter, remember to connect with J. Pilgrim. Discover the magic, embrace the wisdom, and live the adventure. Check out the links in the description, and if you enjoy these stories, hit like, subscribe, and share. It really helps the channel grow. Catch you in the next episode.